Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by The Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is a group of podcasters bringing you daily draft podcasts and is home to the only dynamic mock draft simulator which allows fans to mock draft against other fans. The Draft Professor Simulator features a first-round challenge, 5 unique one-round drafts. The Draft Professor Simulator features a second-round challenge, 10 unique 2-round drafts. All mock drafts are always picking against the fans and draft analysts which use the simulator. Every mock, every pick, every time. The Draft Professor also features ranked players functionality, where you can rank your favorite players at every position. Optionally, you can add tiers to your rankings to show what round you have the players graded in. The Draft Professor also features Draft a Team functionality, which allows users to snake draft a team of 22 players to demonstrate your my guys, compare player strengths, and discuss draft prospects in a way no other mock draft simulator can. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am joined today by Newt and Heather. Heather, welcome to the channel. It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this one. As you know, Ohio State is they're my team, they're my passion. So thank you for this.
Oh, you are welcome. Newt, it's good to see you.
Oh, it's fun to be here, man. I'm excited about this. We're kind of talking about drafted players, and we were talking pre-show about teams that are really churning out prospects, and Ohio State being one of those. Obviously, as a Badger fan, it hurts me to talk about Ohio State in this high regard, but the prospects coming from them are next level, and honestly, every NFL team should be excited about the prospects that are coming out of Ohio State.
Yeah, so I caught a couple of Heather's podcasts during college football season. And then just as I communicated with her, I'm like, well, we can do an Ohio State draft podcast. And we didn't know exactly how it was going to go, but there's a lot of players at Ohio State to talk about. And based upon the Twitter poll that was put out this morning, this is probably going to be pretty good. But I think the way we were going to start is, Heather, out of all the Ohio State players that are entering the draft, which ones do you consider the best players in the team or the most important players to the team?
To Ohio, so the most important players to Ohio State. So it's something that we were talking about earlier. For me, that's really evolved this year. Because if you had asked me earlier, it's always been Will Howard, right? It's always going to be Will Howard. And it was Emeka Egbuka at the beginning of the year. And it was your basic, your JTT, your Jack Sawyer, Cody Simons. It was always them. And we had such high hopes for Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun. But as the season went on, that kind of started to change, and you saw that shift. And the defense they weren't bad, but they weren't great in the first half of the season. And then you really started to see that shift. And then when we got into the postseason, you really started to see a shift. So you had Jeremiah Smith, who came out of nowhere. We all knew he was going to be amazing and good, but Jeremiah Smith was just a freak. So that kind of dropped off Emeka Egbuka's his stock just a little bit, because Smith was getting all of the balls. I think in the postseason for me, it was Jack Sawyer. He was the captain, and he played consistently all year, right? But he kicked it into another gear into the postseason. He essentially, you can argue that his play is what sealed the game for Texas. He's going to go down forever in Ohio State history for that. It was 92 yards. I think he took it to the house. So it's you saw those plays, and you saw Jack Sawyer on the sidelines. It was more than what he was doing on the field. You saw him on the sidelines hyping up his players, hyping up the offensive line, hyping up the offensive players, hyping up the defense. He wasn't just sitting there, studying and reading and being quiet. He was out there being a true leader. So I think Jack Sawyer for me is the most important. Now, is he the highest in the draft? Not by a long shot, but that's really going to hurt Ohio State losing him. Will Howard's always been, the whole year going into the postseason, everyone said he was the lowest ranked quarterback. He was the worst quarterback in the playoffs. And all Will Howard did. I have his stats here. I can't remember what it was, but here it was. He was 82 for 109. He was a 75% completion. He had 1,150 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And the first interception was against Tennessee. That was a pass interference against Jeremiah Smith, and it should have never been an interception. So Will Howard, all he did was go into the postseason, into the biggest stage, and put up those gaudy numbers. He's not going to hurt as bad, though, because Ohio State does reload at quarterback.
And from the draft community standpoint, so like Michael Penix got a first-round pick last year out of his college playoff performance. Mm-hmm. I don't know that too many people had Penix as a top 32 guy. I mean, Newt, I didn't know you last year.
I did. I know you did. I love Michael Penix last year. I did not think he was going 8, but I think he fully deserved that based on the season he had last year. Yeah. And kind of to that point, and Jim, what you're speaking about, I think Will Howard over these last 4 games made himself a lot of money in terms of where he's going to go. I don't think so. And then we're going to do a lot of this back and forth in terms of like where Heather might see players and where like I have them or where they're on a board. Will Howard is going to be a player that I have on my board that's going to be like that middle of day 3. But before the playoffs, you might be arguing like, Will Howard, like he'll probably hear his name called. Now you're like, Will Howard, he's probably going to hear his name called early day 3, if not day 2. Like there's that buzz around him. So I do agree. Last year, Michael Penix made himself some money. I thought he was solid before that, but I think Will Howard this year definitely made himself some money.
He did. He really put that value out there, and he showcased what he's good at. And that's where Chip Kelly, that's where playing for a good team like that really helps, because they showcased his talent. They didn't force him, and almost like a Jalen Milroe, they didn't put him in offensive schemes that were very uncomfortable for him. Milroe looked.
I got a first question for you. So I don't know how much you paid attention to this year, but if you had to draft one of these guys in this upcoming draft, you're a GM of a team. You taking Kyle McCord or Will Howard?
Oh, I'm taking Will Howard. Kyle McCord is too, for me. I love Kyle McCord. I never had any ill will for him, but he can't play in that kind of offense. He did better against mediocre defenses. I think when facing elite defenses is where he really struggled, and you're going to have elite. Even the worst teams in the NFL still have really good defenses.
If McCord had put up his numbers in the Big Ten, he would be a first-round pick. There's almost no doubt.
He was a freak this year. Like, I mean,
he was.
Dude was Brett Favre of the ACC this year.
But the ACC is hot, is warmed up garbage.
I'm not going to argue that point 100%. Like, you talk about, and once again, I'm a Badger through and through. Like, I'm going to fight for the Big Ten like crazy. You talk about ACC versus Big Ten. There's a significant step.
Yeah,
like,
there's a big
power. It's Power 4 football, yes, but SEC Big Ten is different than ACC Big 12 easily. So he did that in the ACC. And secondly, it took him – this is the point I would argue for him. I actually have Kyle McCord higher on my big board than I have Will Howard. I think that this year he got away from the pressure that he felt at Ohio State. I think that he was actually able to be a quarterback and be a gunslinger. And I love watching this year because he was able to kind of go out there and do it. And I think Ohio State inherently brings that pressure like, hey, you got to be perfect. You got to be on your best game. Yeah. But I think that when he was able to step away from him, it was really good for him. Now it brings back the point you just said, like you got to be your best on the biggest stage. And if you're not able to do that in the NFL, at a college level, then what are you going to do at the NFL? So like I do totally see that point. And I think like if you asked me, like, hey, the gap between Will Howard and Kyle McCord pre-playoffs was this. Gap between Kyle McCord and Will Howard post-playoffs is this. Like, I still have McCord ahead, but it is a much tighter gap because of what Will Howard's been able to do.
Well, and Chip Kelly went to the Raiders.
Yes,
So
$6 million.
The rumors would be that Howard's going to go round 2 or round 3 to Vegas.
He's just going to sit behind AOC since that guy's such a gunslinger. Doesn't matter anyways.
Right. But
yeah, but I mean, who wouldn't want to? I mean, you want to play, and Will Howard has that. Will Howard does have that dog. He is killer. He is very cocky. He has that killer mentality. But you go and sit in the NFL for a couple of years and make 20 mil. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah. I think Will Howard will get his chance. Like,
I do too. I do too.
Like I like Raiders like Aiden O'Connell. Like that's a great comparison. Like Aiden O'Connell got his chance.
Yeah.
It's deck was stacked against him, and he kind of showed like where he's at. I think Will Howard will get his chance. I think that's really, really cool with that standpoint for sure. And I think Chip Kelly being there, man, if that's the case, that'd be just a Hollywood script written by itself.
Well, it was. So we're talking about this, and I'm going to go a little bit off topic, but it's still kind of the same topic. It's I was looking at which players actually benefited from the playoffs. So which of the Ohio State players upped their draft stock, because before this, like you said, Will Howard was not going to go 3rd, 4th round, maybe 5th round if he was going to get picked up, but he wasn't going to get picked up into a really good situation. Yeah. I think that there are several players, and I know that some might argue with me, but I actually think that Quinshon Judkins was another one that really upped that draft stock a little bit, because you're splitting the carries, and that's just the way the NFL and college is now, right? You have a two-headed monster with the running backs. Quinshon still isn't my favorite. He's still 1A for me, not 1, but I think he really upped that draft stock because he got so many touches. We were so used to seeing TreyVeyon all year, and they really gave it to Quinn.
It's interesting at running back because both Judkins and Henderson could have came out last year.
Yep.
They could have.
If either would have came out last year, they were probably RB1.
Right.
Could Judkins have come out last year?
Judkins, no. Judkins was a sophomore.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was
Judkins
just
was a sophomore.
Okay. TreyVeyon could though, for sure.
That's why he transferred. That's why he transferred out. He needed one more year.
I'm still perplexed based on last year's running back class that TreyVeyon did not come out.
It's still NIL.
Yeah, he had the NIL money, but it was that unfinished business. Like Jack Sawyer could have left, Cody Simon could have left, Lathan Ransom could have left, so JT Tuimoloau could have left.
To be fair, all of those guys I think are middling players. I think that all of those guys would have fallen, 5th, 6th, 7th player in their draft group.
Right.
TreyVeyon could have pushed for the number 1 running back easily. Last year's running back class was very, very weak. And if you get a TreyVeyon Henderson, where I know he was plagued with injuries over his sophomore and junior year, and it really, really kind of hampered his ability to come out. And that's ultimately, I'm sure with the NIL doesn't hurt. No. And that you see the roster coming and you're like, we can do this.
Yep.
And like all those factors go into it. But this year, like he's had that ability to kind of have that blossoming season. Now, unfortunately, he does that in a loaded running back class. But I think that TreyVeyon is the one that still leaves me scratching my head a little bit.
How high do you have Henderson on your board, Newt?
So this might be the first hot take of the day with Heather. I have Henderson at 65 on my board. I have Quinshon Judkins at 52 on my board. I actually have Judkins ahead of Henderson.
So there are, like I said, they're very, you could say one or the other. I like Henderson higher because he has better hands. He's a better pass catcher. Yep. I think that he has the kind of speed. He has good speed. He has good strength, but he's a better pass catcher than Quinshon. And that's why I'm putting Henderson above Quinshon Judkins. And Quinshon Judkins runs out of gas. He doesn't have the long speed. He's got those bursts, whereas TreyVeyon kind of finds a second gear when he gets some distance and he can turn on the jets. So that's why
I think in the draft community, Henderson is probably the better athlete, but the injuries push Henderson down. So it's not necessarily about who's the best running back. It's about who's the best value for that area of the draft And if a player has injury history, usually you wait until like the third or fourth round.
Yeah. I will say like kind of like, cause I track where not everyone, but a lot of people most people have Henderson above Judkins. Like the big board that I kind of like keep in my background for consensus has Henderson about 54 and Judkins around 70. So I'm kind of like, honestly, like I flip flop the two. I love what you say about that, Heather, with Judkins and those pieces that go into that. I just think Judkins is a lot more raw. And when I look at him and I think he's a raw player, I think, man, what if you get your hands on him as a running back coach? Right. And you really, really get to mold this guy. I think Henderson's a finished product. I think you see what look at Owen popping on. He can't talk, but he can type at least.
Yeah. So Owen texted me last night and said he had laryngitis, Jim. I can't make it. So Owen, thanks for stopping by.
Owen, just hang off for a little bit. I'll tell Heather your take on Emeka Egbuka in a little while. I'll save that one for a little bit later. But back to Judkins and Henderson. I think these guys. So like once again, these guys are 13 spots different on my board. I have them both as like second to late second round picks. Yeah. And if you were to give me both these guys last year, they're running back one easily. Like I have them above Jalen Wright. I have them above Trey Benson. I think that these guys are easily running back one. I think that this class with the running backs is just so dang stacked where it's really, really tough to put these guys ahead of a Caleb Johnson, ahead of an Omarion Hampton, ahead of an Ashton Genty. And that's just the nature of the beast when you look at one draft class versus another. But like I said, I mean, Judkins is running back 4 for me. Henderson is running back 6. Dylan Sampson sandwiched in between the two, but they are just like boom, boom, boom for me.
Well, but it's a really good time to be a running back in the NFL right now because some of them even have like that 3, like you have your goal line back, you have your halfback, you have your fullback, you have your workhorse. I mean, unless you're like a Baltimore where you're going to, let's not get into Baltimore. I don't like Baltimore, but like a Browns would be a great example. We could really use another running back. So you're going to have all of these NFL teams where they don't place high value on running backs anymore, but they carry a lot of them. So
yeah, that's a good point.
You could have, you could get drafted and earn your way into that. Look at the San Francisco situation where all 3 of their running backs, well, 2, who was it? Christian McCaffrey went down and I can't remember who the second one was.
Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Mason, that sounds right. And then God, what's his name? He played at Wisconsin and then Kentucky or Memphis. Starts with a G. It's like a 5th round pick. He just went off.
Right. Right. And that's what you get. Like you just never know because running backs they have such a short shelf life. So you have a better opportunity, I think, as a running back. Now the quarterback class is really weak this year. I think it's really weak. I would
agree. Thank you. I knew it was Isaac Guerrero.
Yeah.
What a guy. God, we appreciate you, Owen.
Yeah. So I think that's where TreyVeyon and Quinshon are going to be fine. Actually, all those running backs in the draft class are going to be fine this year, I think. And it all depends on what NFL team they get to go on. Simmons, then Jackson, then Egbuka. Yeah. But I think it depends on what team they go to, because if you go to a team, and again, I'm just going to pick on my Browns. If you go to a team like the Browns where you have no offensive line, you're not going to be any good. If you don't have any kind of protection or if you don't have a passing game, how good are you going to be as a rookie? So
that's 100%.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about Josh Simmons. I mean, I guess we can talk about, Simmons, then Jackson, then so Simmons he's I was
going to say, Heather, who do you like better, Simmons or Jackson? Like, just if you had to pick one, Simmons or Jackson?
I just based on the implosion of the line after Simmons got hurt, Josh Simmons, because he was so valuable, and you didn't see that until he was actually out. Like you saw it, you knew, but once he was out, that's when we started to we struggled quite a bit. it was this string of injuries, and his injury, I think, kind of started that snowball. So I do like Simmons, but I mean, I like Donovan Jackson too. I have Donovan Jackson high on my draft board.
Well, Jackson's interesting. So Newt and Owen and I started doing scouting reports, and it was early November.
Yeah.
Literally the first player that was up was Donovan Jackson. And I think Newt, you had already seen him in summer scouting.
Yep.
Owen
really like the guy. Really like the guy in summer scouting.
And Owen is a scout for the University of Buffalo. And then he podcasts with me, when he's done with his 16-hour day. But so it was Owen's first look at Donovan Jackson, and people can go back and look at the offensive line channel on the podcast, and you can see Owen's like, okay, I like him, but Owen liked him. I'm going to say like third round liked him. But then by the end of the scouting report cycle, because Donovan Jackson had played 3 games, I think at left tackle, I think when we did the big board, I think Owen had Jackson as interior offensive lineman 1. Right. I don't know.
Which is fair.
Obviously, Owen, if you're listening to me, remind me how high you had Jackson when we did the board, but you either had him as your first or second offensive lineman on the board, and that's probably going in round 1 right now.
Yeah.
It might be to Baltimore at the end of round 1, but like round 1 kind of thing.
I mean, I would believe that for Jackson. Yeah. So just to kind of talk about him real quick. I had Jackson. He's like at the lowest, my interior offensive lineman 5. He has grown into my interior offensive lineman 2. And the reason is his ability to play tackle and what he brings you as that floor. Now, I want to make this very, very clear. I do not think he is a tackle in the NFL. I think he has physical limitations that keep him from being a tackle.
He does. That's what I have. Yeah.
But what do we got here? Oh, you could just tell us if you didn't have laryngitis. But he's impressed me. And I think I was a little bit down on him watching him earlier in this year. He didn't quite give me what I wanted to see. But the minute you put him in left tackle, he really rose to the occasion. I was really impressed. And one of the things that I've started to see, especially as I've started to become a draft writer for why am I blanking right now? A draft guide. Like mental toughness and physical toughness are some things that I look at and I really, really care a lot more about than I think I did before. And seeing Donovan Jackson put into love it, Owen, and seeing Donovan Jackson put in that situation and saying, hey, you're in our interior offensive lineman, but we need you to go play left tackle for the rest of the season, go up against the best of the best. And there you go. I think it's a credit to him, and I think it says a lot about him. And he shot up for me. He's in interior offensive lineman number 2 for me, so I'd probably have him right behind who Owen has number 3. I'm guessing it's maybe Tyler Booker or Jordan Savaiinaea. But I've got Donovan Jackson with a fringe first-round grade. He's not a true first-round grade for me, but overall he's number 34 on my board, and he is a special talent for a guy that I think is an interior offensive lineman, but at his floor, he can be a swing tackle for you.
Well, he's big. He's 6'4". He's imposing, and he's got the lower body strength that he has, so he's real center. So, but he does get stiff, and he does miss. He does miss quite a bit. That's what concerns me a little bit with him. Now, is that something with the right coaching and the right mentors around him that he's going to be able to fix? Yeah, because that's not fundamental. That's just, I miss this tackle. I need to move this way. That's something that you can teach someone. He has that. He has those fundamentals, and he is very mobile. For a big guy, he is very mobile. So I love Donovan Jackson, and what he did for the Buckeyes was huge. People like to talk about, we love to talk about the offense. We love to talk about Will Howard. We love to talk about the gaudy numbers, the TreyVeyon, the Emekas, the Jeremiah Smiths. What you don't like to talk about What's not sexy to talk about is that offensive line, your left tackle.
You use the word sexy. I love it. It's my favorite part of this podcast.
It's not sexy to talk about because you don't love to talk about the big guys, your centers, your left tackles, your guards. Yep. Without your left tackle, Will Howard would have been pancaked, and he was. There were quite a few games where he was scrambling and running for his life. Thank God we had a mobile quarterback. But if you're running for your life the whole entire game, nothing is going to work. So that offensive line, I think, they were very underrated, especially in the last, not even in the playoffs in the postseason. I think they were very underrated in the last, several games of the year, minus the Michigan game, because we forgot what a forward pass was. Whatever.
And going back to your offensive line, so I'm going to shout out, was it Seth McLaughlin? Did I say that effectively?
Yeah.
So I know that Owen has said, he liked McLaughlin's tape. He said he doesn't want to take him too early, but I remember Owen on at least 2 other podcasts talking about McLaughlin.
Yeah.
And if your school is putting 3 offensive linemen into the NFL draft,
right,
that's a good offensive line.
Right. And we're seeing such a drop off, especially in college and in the NFL, because it's not the fun position to play. But you're seeing such a drop off. I would just remember watching so many games this year. What is going? Where are the blocks? Where are the offensive line? Because it's crucial. Without a strong front, you have nothing. And like you said, putting 3 in, it's just a testament, especially with how many times they had to move those pieces around. Seth McLaughlin was a fun story for us as Ohio State fans, because when he was transferring from Alabama fans, they were not happy about Caleb Downs. But when Seth went, they were like, good riddance, bye. He wasn't that good. We didn't like him that much. And Seth goes, to Ohio State and has the season of his life until he got hurt, that was too bad because he was such a nice kid. But I just remember, good luck. You're getting Seth. He's not very good. He's not very strong. He's got flat feet. He's just going to stand there. And that's not what we saw. So I think he elevated.
Heather, I'm curious. So we talk about these 3 offensive linemen, and they're 3 big names. I mean, they're 3 names that are going to easily get drafted.
Mm-hmm.
With each of them, I don't know if you can, how confidently you can say, but I'm curious. I'm curious. What would the absolute floor that you would think? Obviously, it maybe could go past that, but for each of them, what is the floor that you would think that they have in the NFL draft?
You mean as far as what is their careers going to look like, or where are they going to go?
Where they were drafted.
Where are they going to go? I think that Donovan, his floor is round 2. If he's not taken by round 2, I still think I think Seth McLaughlin, because of his injury, I think he's going to go a little bit later. I think he might go maybe third roundish. It just depends on who's on the board there. I think he's going to go either late second, early third. Josh Simmons, I still think is going to go in the first round. So
I like that.
I think that the floor for Simmons and Jackson is the second round. If they go past that, that's a hell of a steal.
So I both of those 2, I'm pretty well aligned with you. I think Josh Simmons, he won't get past pick 40. Maybe mid 40s. Yeah. That would be a shock to me. I think there's a lot of people that are going to have him OT1 just based on the arm length in question out of Kelvin Banks Jr. His wingspan is sick. Oh yeah, so thanks, huge. Yeah. And then Donovan Jackson, I think, brings a lot to it. I think you said it really well. I think pick 64, second round is his floor. Yeah. McLaughlin, I got a little bit lower. I could see him going into day 3. And I think those injuries raise a lot of questions. Yeah. I think this center class isn't that great, and I think that there's some elements about it that invite you to take a look at a guy like Mark Simbo or Charles Grant III or someone that's not a collegiate center and put them at center because of their mobility. Gray Zabel is another name that comes to mind. He's the one I think I'd probably maybe waver against you a little bit, but The other two, like the bigger profile guys, I totally see eye to eye with you on.
The thing with Simmons that I think makes him a little bit higher of a draft pick for me is that he is versatile. He doesn't just play left tackle. He's a tackle. He can play right. He can play left. And I think that's pretty valuable in the NFL now.
Well, I would say the fact that he can play left tackle. I mean, you look at any team like you want a left tackle. Like Armand Membu is a really good name to kind of like refer back to, like Mizzou tackle. He's a rising tackle prospect. He's a right tackle, and there are going to be some limitations with that. Like, but you take Josh Simmons, he can play left tackle. Mm-hmm. That automatically huge check mark.
Yep.
So and the big, like, one of the big draft stories will be that there's not a lot of tackles. And then the tackles that exist, like Newt said, they might be a right tackle.
Yep.
Simmons, it would not shock me if he went to New England 4th overall. Like, he could literally be a top 5, top 10 pick, even with the injury, simply because by the time New England picks in round 2, all the left tackles will be gone.
I'm not gonna lie, Jimmy, it would shock me, but I don't hate that take. I just think there's a lot of really good players at the top.
Well, right. I mean, there's definitely they would be passing up a lot of really good players, but at the same time, like I was about to say Josh Allen. Wow, yeah. Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons. When the draft cycle was in, let's say, October, a lot of us had Simmons as tackle 1.
Yeah,
he was going to go top 10, and the only thing that's holding that back right now is the injury. But as long as you know the player's going to recover, spend the top 5 pick and get yourself a franchise left tackle. It's a needed position.
I'm not going to push back on you. Like, that's totally fair. I'm just not taking Josh Simmons number 5 overall. Like, I like the guy. I think he could easily be tackle 1. And I think top 10 is there, or was it New England number 4? I think when you talk about the guys at the top of the draft, I think you want to hit on one of those blue chip guys, whether it's Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, or because I think one of the quarterbacks will be gone by then. If not, then
one will be.
Anarchy has set in, and I will eat my words and boil my underwear on live air. But if not, Mason Graham, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter will all be there. Like, one of those guys, I just can't pass on him. I love what Bill's saying right here.
Yeah, I saw Simmons at 11 to San Francisco. Yeah. That's what I've seen.
I like that. I could see him like 8, 9. The teens, though. I think the teens is his sweet spot. Yeah. I think that really, really top 5 picks is my draft philosophy. I'm not saying that's everyone's, but you got to take talent over positional need.
Okay, so that's a really good. I guess that's a story for another day, because I've talked about that. What do you do? Do you take talent or do you take positional need? Because I am, again, I'm a Browns fan, and we're looking at, we need a quarterback. We need a lot, but we need a
Jim, get Bill in here right now. Get Bill in here. So Bill, I'm going to do this. I know Bill's watching. There he goes. I know Bill's watching.
Bill is a Browns fan. He is a draft professor. He's a Browns fan. His night was last night, so he's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go off topic, but I'm just saying, just to talk about the draft. Like, what do you do?
So, like, if you're a Browns fan, so Bill is. They draft Cam Ward number 1. Browns take oh my gosh. Yeah, thank you so much. They take Abdul Carter, number 2. They get some draft capital, Myles Garrett. Say you get a first-round pick this year, and you're going to get some then on top of that. You then go and maybe you grab, like, your Jackson Dart, or maybe you don't, and maybe you wait a little bit, but you, like, build that stock. I really like the Abdul Carter for the Browns. I probably would go Travis Hunter.
That's where
I'd probably go Travis Hunter, but, like, I think one of those big guys, if you're Browns, I think you go for the talent over the quarterback.
That's where I'm at this year in the draft, because the draft class is not as strong. You know, maybe if it were in some of the past, and some of it you don't know, some of it you really don't know. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not loving the quarterbacks, so I'm going with talent this year. You want to take the best talent, even if it's not a need to fill.
Our podcast last night was the 2026 draft class. So draft professors are very fortunate to have Mr. Bill Sparks, because Bill grinds tape like there is no other. But Bill's board is already 120 deep for next year. And it was a lot of the guys that went back, but like with Nussmeier going back and Alar going back. And then Bill, by the way, I was told on the YouTube chat, we forgot to talk about Cabe Klubnik last night. And that came through
Cabe Klubnik.
But there's 3 quarterbacks that are probably going in the top 10 right there.
Right. And that's where I think the next year's class is going to be a lot, because you also don't know who's going to emerge. Who are you going to see? Because you always have those quarterbacks. You always have those kids where you're like, where did this come from? Like, where is it? Kyle McCord goes and has the season of his lifetime after having kind of a mid-season at Ohio State. And you're like, how did this happen? We saw the talent, but we didn't see it. This is not the same talent that we saw.
And those 3 guys, you're not even mentioning Nico. You're not even mentioning Arch. And obviously, like, Nico's done it for a year. Right. Arch hasn't. You want to see that a little bit, but you're just like, you're on pins and needles waiting. So like, I totally agree with that mentality.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Cause you need to see a full season of it. Sometimes you only need to see a half a season and you're like, no, this isn't working. So, I mean, we've had that with some Ohio State players too.
Oh my God. Who's the quarterback? Why? Cardell Jones. If you're Cardell Jones, you only need to see like 2 games in the playoffs. You're like,
right. He should have just entered the draft, because he ruined his career after that. He did not have
a Rex Ryan draft pick for Buffalo.
Oh my God.
Like, I don't even know. Like, did he ever see the field? I have no idea.
Yeah, I think he saw like a couple of meaningless snaps. And
I'll never forget him like holding up the natty for Ohio State. And I'm like, God, where did this guy come from? And then just like his name fell off the earth as quick as it came onto it.
It did. We all said, who is this guy and where did he come from? The only thing that everybody knew him from was, we didn't come here to play school. When he tweeted, we ain't come here to play school. And then you just never heard from him again. And he was 3rd string. He never saw, even in meaningless games, he never saw a single snap. And then all of a sudden he comes in and and then he comes in and you're like, who is this guy? He's literally 12 gauge. He's got an arm. And it was just magic that season. Like, it was just magic. It was meant to be. I don't know how we did it. Well, I wasn't watching it from a couch. I don't know how they did it.
The we applies. I still throw the we around. Like it that's fine.
I can't help it. You know, we live and die for our team. So
yeah. I got a burning question, because we've talked about the running backs. We've talked about the offensive line. We'll get to the defensive side of the ball, because this defensive front that you guys have is ridiculous.
Sick. Yeah.
Emeka Egbuka. That's a name that last week was a fun name to toss around the show. Yeah. And I'm so angry that Owen isn't on right now, because did you know that Owen hates Emeka Egbuka? Like, he thinks he's not even draftable.
What?
That's completely a lie. He doesn't think that, but
I was ready to fight. I was ready to throw hands.
He didn't have him in his top 5 when we were ranking wide receivers last week, and I kind of threw a fit about it. But the other guy, Josh, that was on there, he's an Egbuka freak. Like, wide receiver 2, absolutely loves him.
Yeah,
he's wide receiver 4 for me. Yeah,
the first round of the Steelers.
I love it. I love that. I like Steelers first round. I think that's the best comp. Like, you take a look at George Pickens as that alpha X, and you like put Egbuka with them. I've loved that comp or that draft pick. So Egbuka for me right now, he is, and I haven't wavered yet, but Josh has like been chipping away at me. I'm like, he's like right on like a true first round grade for me. He's sitting number 23 on my board.
Yeah.
So like, I think he'll get drafted in the first round. I think he's like just about a first round talent. What do you think? Yeah, there it is. See, look at slander.
Wide receiver
Complete slander.
Get out of here.
Slander. That's pretty much saying that he's not draftable.
So
Right.
Bill has improved his grade. That was not where he had Egbuka during scouting reports. So even Bill is warming up to the Egbuka train.
Oh my God.
So Bill was doing scouting reports on wide receivers, and Egbuka was one that him and the other gentleman that were doing scouting reports, they were far enough apart.
Yep.
And it's just interesting because Egbuka is a Robin, right? But out of all of the, let's say the 5 wide receivers that are going in round 1, to any of you listening, Egbuka is going to have a better rookie year than any other first round wide receiver. Like, you're drafting Egbuka for the floor, right? You know what you're getting. And there's some people in the draft world that are saying Egbuka is wide receiver 1 because he has a safe floor.
I'm going to jump off of that. And like I said, Josh Townsend, like Heather, if you get a chance to follow him, Juice_23. I know his Twitter handle by heart at this point because he's such a great follow. He is like, honest to God, he is just like eating away at me. I'm struggling to like separate, like comparing Emeka Egbuka to Amon-Ra St. Brown in my head.
Okay.
And like, it's the comp that I'm like, I keep coming back to, and I'm like, man, like this guy he catches everything that comes his way. Yes, he's probably going to be a slot player in the NFL, but I don't think that like
is that a bad thing though?
As a Packer fan, I remember the Randall Cobb years, and it's like, man, that was so much fun. And you look at CeeDee Lamb out in Dallas, and you're like, geez, the impact that guy has right now. Obviously, CeeDee can play anywhere because he's got the size to do so. Right, but he's the most dangerous with the slot. And you look at that, and Egbuka's not a small guy. He's 6'1", and he's over 200 pounds, like 205 or something like that.
And he'll get bigger.
Yeah, he's got good size. He's going to put on a little bit more mass.
Yeah.
Like, I just like him. I'm curious, like, what do you see with Egbuka? He's been there forever, obviously.
Yeah, and you mentioned that's what he's got natural hands too. Yep. So you put the ball up and he's gonna catch it, and he's smart. Did you see the post game? They were showing clips of the game where Egbuka, they were on the sidelines and he was sitting with Will Howard, and he said, "You've got to get the ball to Smith," because he saw the matchup and he saw the way he was running. So he's very smart. He has a very high IQ. I mean, he's not the best. He's not the best in space sometimes, but you line him up in the slot. He's a great route runner. He is a great route runner, and he's a great blocker. We don't talk enough about that either. As a wide receiver, we don't talk enough about the things that don't show up on the stat lines, and blocking is something that is huge. He's a great blocker.
He's such a good block. Like you play the slot in the NFL, and you talk about it. Teams play, man, almost 60% 11 personnel. You're still going to run out of it. You need a slot guy that's going to be able to block. And I knock slot guys that don't. You look at Egbuka, like that's one of the first things that I have written down is that guy will block his ass off.
Yes.
And it's so much fun to see.
Yep.
And I think once again, it goes back. You take a look at a player that you say, hey, like, tell me about this player. He plays with his heart on his sleeve because he does everything he needs down in and down out, and it shows. And truth be told, so I was lower than on Egbuka going into the season, and I think it was a little bit of
he was hurt.
Well, not only that, it's just I think I got a little fatigued by the name. Truth be told, it's like I've heard this name for the last 18 months, and he could have came out last year, but I think just like the way he plays the game. He plays it smart, like you said. Yep. The guy knows in and out how to play it. He blocks his ass off, which just shows that like how he approaches the game. I actually disagree with you a little bit. I like him in space. I love his yards after catch. And Owen, I'll say I like Egbuka more than I like JSN.
Yeah, I actually
I know the questions for Heather. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that one. It's not that I didn't like JSN. I just think that I think that Emeka is a more complete wide receiver. I think he does more of the things. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jim, very, very good. Loved him. Big loss, and I just think that Emeka Egbuka is a more rounded wide receiver. And who cares if he's not going to get like explosive separation? If he's going to run the route right and he's going to catch a 7-8 yard pass and run for another 5-6 yards, who cares if he's not getting the explosive downfield plays? You don't always need that. You need someone who's reliable for those short yardage gains or for those, 11, 12 yard gains. That's what you need.
I got a question. So you take Egbuka, and I'm sure you've been asked this before, but Egbuka, JSN, Marv, Olave, and Garrett. Those 5 guys right there. Rank them.
I would say Garrett. I would say Olave. Are we talking about college career or are we talking about
I'm saying like what you think. So
Garrett Wilson, number 1 for me. Yeah.
Where you think they will finish in terms of like their NFL careers? Like if you to rank their NFL careers and their value to a team.
Okay. Value.
And I know Garrett and Olave are a couple years in.
They are. It's unfair right now for me to say Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't going to have a great career because I was going
to say Jeremiah Smith too, but I was gonna leave it at just those 5.
Well, Jeremiah Smith, I think it's based on what we've seen this year. Jeremiah Smith. The comparison to MHJ was kind of. I got into some arguments with people because I think that Jeremiah Smith is better than Harrison was. Only for the simple fact that it took Marvin Harrison a couple of years to develop. It took him about 1.5 years to develop. Jeremiah Smith came in right out of the gate and was effective.
Yeah,
I think that
there's data there. We had somebody on from A to Z Sports, and he was saying that he uses that data. The earlier a player breaks out is actually a predictor of success.
I'm assuming positive predictor.
I'm
assuming a positive predictor of success.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was Travis May, and he was on a tight end podcast. So it would be nice. If you want to hear what he had to say, Newt, look up. It was the episode where we did the tight end big board.
Okay.
But I learned a lot just from listening to him and how he did that. But Heather, sorry for interrupting.
No, that's interesting. That is interesting. I mean, we're all. Jeremiah Smith is like he is him for us. Like we don't care NIL. We do not care. Pay him $20 million. Pay him the whole entire roster. Like we don't care. Keep him at any cost. I think this is how I would rank. I would say Wilson, Olave. I think Emeka Egbuka is going to have a better career than JSN. And then I actually have Marvin Harrison Jr. at the bottom. And I'm just looking at he's stuck in Arizona. Harrison Jr. is stuck in Arizona for a while. And you have a quarterback who says it is not my job to get him the ball. Well, then whose job is it, dingus? It is your job to get him the ball. So I think that MHJ is just stuck in a bad situation. So I think that that's going to hinder him.
Okay. That's like, I
like that.
I can't disagree. Yeah. I would have never thought that in a million years. I mean, Harrison Jr. was number 1 on my board. No questions asked last year. Like above Caleb. Above everyone else, like easily.
Yeah.
So it's wild to see that, and I think there is a little bit of sourness after you see Neighbors, Bowers, Thomas Jr. Kind of all have the seasons that they did, given the situation. Maybe not Thomas Jr. I know a lot would agree with like Trevor Lawrence. But you definitely look at Neighbors and Bowers.
Malik Neighbor, who has a terrible team, terrible team. Like you feel bad for him because my God, what a ceiling if he was on a team that
he had over 100 catches, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had over 100 catches on the New York Giants and he missed 2 games. Like that's insane to talk about. Like he did the things that you say there. And that's kind of like where I come back and I take a look and year one is not an all be all. You cannot judge it by year one, but you compare those 3 especially to Harrison Jr. and it's like, oh man, you'd love to see a little bit more. So I do get that ranking.
year one is not fair, even if you're good, even if you're really good. Like, let's see if that sophomore slump hits, because that does happen quite a bit.
Yep.
But that's the only reason, because he's on that team for a while.
I love it.
Yeah.
I was like, so the other thing that I wanted to pop in, and I know Jim probably wants to hear this too. That defensive four, that front four that Ohio State has, because we talked about two guys on here. I've raved about one of the other two, Jack Sawyer specifically.
Yeah.
So if you had to kind of like, let's flip the script now to the current players. So Ty Hamilton, Tyliek Williams, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer. In terms of draft stock, what do you think that like where are those guys at for you?
So
I'll give you mine after this.
Okay. So I actually have it at, again, like we're at 1A, 1B. I have Jack Sawyer, I have Tyliek, I have Tyliek Williams, and then I have okay, we'll go with this. I have JTT. I have those are my top three.
Okay.
Just because of how they played in the postseason. So who was it? You said Tyliek Williams. Who was the other one that you had asked me about?
Ty Hamilton.
I have Ty Hamilton. I have him fourth. I have him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like. I no disrespect to Ty Hamilton. I don't think that's like super surprising.
Yeah.
And I think
So we're flipped. I have Sawyer Williams, and then I have JTT, and then I have
Williams, Sawyer, and JTT are probably within 15 spots, maybe 25 on everybody's board,
or maybe like 10 on someone else's board.
They're 10 spots apart on yours.
Let me take a look really quick.
That's why. But you were saying that we're so close. That's why I said I have them at like 1A and 1B. Yeah. Like you could go. You really can't. You can't get mad.
It's going to depend on what type of edge a team wants.
Yeah.
I lie. JTT. So JTT drops down for me. So it's not JTT. Sawyer and Tyliek are really high for me.
That's
we've talked about Tyliek extensively on this Thursday night specifically, and I think Tyliek is the best first, second down defensive lineman in this year's draft, period. Like,
he's huge.
Mason Graham, anyone else, like he is a run stuffer through and through. Yes, I don't think he's effective on third down, which is like it drops him down because I think that you have to be, if you're going to be an impact defensive interior player, you have to be an impact on passing downs. And I think that's
you're not. I wish you could see what I have written down. I'm not. I
believe it.
He's a good edge rush, and he is not great at the pass rush. Like he's just not good. It's not that he's not good. It's that's not his strong suit.
Right. He doesn't like. There are guys that he's better than, obviously, but that is like I'm not gonna. It's not a deficiency, but like he's okay. He really does not stand out in pass rush, but he's not. We use the word liability with like a couple players. He's not a liability, but he's really not bringing that juice on third down or in specific 11 personnel sets. Right. So Jack Sawyer, like I love Jack Sawyer. I really do. I think he is a stellar player right now. For me, Jack Sawyer sits number 6 on my edge rushers, and that is a huge jump.
Yep.
Last year I had him like, I think I had him like fringe second round, like straight middle day 2. I was kind of mad on him. I was like, he's just like another guy. And then this year, I think everything he was able to do, and obviously the postseason run that he had was just so impressive. He's another guy. Like I don't have a first round grade on him. I think there's a really, really good chance he could go in the top 32 though, because of what he brings. But Tyliek and Jack Sawyer are going to be easily, very, very easily within. I think I have them within, I don't know, 5 picks of one another.
Yeah,
and then
they are. They're very similar. They're very similar style. The only thing I think that gives Jack Sawyer the edge a little bit is Jack Sawyer is a little bit more relentless. He's a little bit more explosive, and he has really good discipline. So I think that it's more of a mental thing with Jack Sawyer that you're going to get that edges him out just a little bit, I think. And, he does get a little stiff sometimes, but boy, did he play in the biggest games of his life. He played the best he's ever played.
I'm just giggling right now. You probably didn't even catch say that
the Caleb Downs?
No, I was going to say that the edge that Jack Sawyer plays with the pun that probably wasn't intended, but I'm over here giggling about no one else probably catches up on. Everything, though, I totally agree with it. I really like him. JTT, I think JTT is a solid player. I heard a quote one time about him. JTT is going to play through 3 contracts in the NFL, rookie 1 and then 2 more. He's going to be a guy that never lets you down, but he's never going to be a guy that you're like, hey, I need that guy on my roster. He's going to fill out. He's going to hit that average NFL salary year after year. Yeah. He's going to be just an amazing rotation player, but he's never going to pop for you. Right. And if you get JTT in the early 3rd round and he does just that for you, where he plays a 12-year NFL career through 3 contracts, and he's just a steady Eddie. I think that you can't complain with that. Just kind of like knowing what he is and what he brings. Another guy that's like a wonderful, wonderful run defender. Not going to be the flashy sack guy, but a guy that where you draft him will impact it, but he can definitely be a solid NFL player for you.
So I'm smiling and I'm laughing because I have almost the exact same thing written here. I said he's consistent and he's reliable. He's the player that you did not see these massive swings with. You didn't see him do any better in the beginning of the year and in the postseason. You saw JTT was JTT the whole entire year. And that's what you're going to get with him. You're going to get that consistency. You're going to get that reliability. And he's going to be that guy that is going to do the things. He's not going to do the big things. He's going to do the things.
And here's some interesting things about both Sawyer and JTT. So, looking at like draft boards and, in June, July, very early on, they're like between 30 and 40. Mm-hmm. And then we go through summer scouting. We go through the entire scouting process. You know where they are on the boards right now? Between 30 and 40. They might be at 45. But going back to your consistent.
Yeah.
We likely would have taken them in the top 50 had either of them come out last year. That was where they were in summer scouting. That's where they are now. Yep. Right? Like, I definitely get the consistency. So Owen wants a shout out to the dad joke.
There it is.
Like, I'm a dad. I didn't even get your dad joke.
Oh,
that
come on.
Right over my head.
It was so
right
good.
Over my head.
Oh, I loved it. Heather, so, you're dropping bombs. You don't even know it. I love it.
I'm dropping bad dad jokes. Apparently, you never know what you're going to get with me.
Yeah, well,
I like to surprise everyone.
This podcast can go a lot of different directions.
Oh, so, you need to watch some of mine. Some of mine, I'm like, we took a hard left turn, and we're going to have to get it back.
Yeah, I've caught a couple of them. I think the last one I caught was actually you were on with 3 other people, and it was right before the playoffs. There was like an Alabama podcaster that stuck out, and I'm like,
with Herb and Raj. Yeah, that was interesting.
That made me because you and I had been communicating even before that, and I was like, this will definitely work. Like, so we do a daily. This podcast is daily. So there's different people coming on doing draft stuff. And because we do it daily, I'm like, well, we can do an Ohio State episode.
Well,
they have enough players.
They do have enough players. So they're saying that there could be, I've seen 15 and I've seen up to 17 players could get drafted. And that's insane. And this is going to be one of those teams that you look back and you see how many of them got drafted. And you're going to say, if they hadn't won the national championship, it would have been criminal because of how many players they had. It was kind of like that 2014 Ohio State team where everybody from Alabama, everybody from Oregon, like everybody went into the NFL. That class was loaded.
So
I was gonna say, go for it, Jim. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I want to do a little thing here on the Ohio State defensive backs because I remember doing the defensive backs with Bill, and we did Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock,
Yeah.
And Davison Igbenison.
Yeah. David's Iggy. We just call him Iggy because we can't say his name.
I love that. Thank you. That helps out a ton.
Could you rank those three as to their importance to Ohio State? And then Newt, I would be curious where they were on your board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Denzel Burke, number one now because he redeemed him. He had a little bit of redemption in the playoffs. So I think Davison, I would go Denzel Burke, Davison, Igbenison, Iggy, and then CJ Hicks. CJ Hicks was kind of a disappointment. He was a little bit of a disappointment.
And then what about Jordan Hancock? How would you?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan Hancock. Jordan Hancock number 3, and then Hicks number 4. I still think, yeah, that's what I would. I still think Denzel Burke has an upside. I think that Igbenison isn't. He's staying in the.
He did go back, but.
Yeah.
When we were trying to, let's say, which Ohio State corner is the better prospect, I think Iggy, during midseason scouting, Iggy came back higher.
Because Iggy has really good hands. He has really good hands. And he has, when he is an elite defender, he is an elite defender. But he's got hands. So he loves to interfere. I think he was the most penalized defensive back in the friggin' country this year. I mean, I can remember it was the Penn State game. He had 2 pass interferences on one drive, but then he goes in and, they're on the 1 yard line and there's that drop into the corner and Igbenison catches it because he's got really good hands. Yeah, Iggy is better than Burke, but I do think that Burke redeemed himself. I still think that Igbenison needs to learn how to defend a little bit better than what he does. He has to clean those penalties up. Hancock is fine. Jordan Hancock is fine. He's fine.
Newt, where do you have the 3 Ohio State defensive backs in your board?
So this is kind of one where I take a look at it, and I was very high summer scouting. Denzel Burke, I was high on him.
Should have went out last year.
Like it's one of those things where you say, like, man, why didn't you go out last year? Because I take a look at, man, I am blanking right now so hard, and it's not this drastic, but it's a cornerback for Penn State, Kalen King. Kalen King for Penn State is the one that keeps popping in my head. It's not as bad as that. Kalen King for Penn State. You had Joey Porter Jr., who effectively is a first-round pick. He was number 32 because the Dolphins had their weird pick revoked in the first round. So he's pick number 32. It's top of the second round. Stellar player. Has had an okay start to his NFL career. I think he's got a lot of room to grow, but he's been fine. As a second-round pick, he's been fine. But I got these whispers. I got Kalen King, and you're like, oh man, this guy's gonna be great. This guy's gonna be great. And last year he sucked. He was just awful. And he went the third to last pick. He went to the Packers. And shocking, he didn't play at all because he sucks. I don't think Denzel Burke is that. But it just that's another one that kind of keeps playing through my head. It's man, I have this guy as a top 50 pick going into the season, fringe first round. And I don't even have him as a day 2 guy anymore.
No.
There's been a lot of so for me, there's been a lot of things that have just let me down. I get the playoff push. I do.
Well, I think it upped his draft, but when you're bad, the thing is that when it's bad, even being a little bit better than when it's really bad, even being a little bit better than really bad is still bad.
Yeah. So Denzel Burke, and the thing is, I take a look at Denzel Burke. He would be number 2 for me compared to those guys. Iggy would be 1. He'd probably be sitting in that late day 2, middle of third round conversation for me. I like Iggy. I like an aggressive player, and you kind of speak to those. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, so you speak to those points, and I'm like, man. Give me the guy that's going to go out there and I have to tell him to slow down, not speed up. That's always my mentality. I don't want a guy to play scared. I want a guy to play where he's looking to kill the other guy across the way. And you have to kind of pull him off a little bit. The center backs. But that I'd have those guys probably flipped a little bit. And then Jordan Hancock. I have a draftable trade on Hancock. He's going to be, though, a lot farther down for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Denzel, the only comparison that they have that Denzel Burke has to Denzel Ward is the first name. Like, that's really the only similarity that they have.
Ohio State as well.
They play in Ohio.
Yeah.
There you go. They both went to Ohio State. They're both named Denzel. Therefore, they can be compared, right?
They're both going to be Cleveland Browns. Oh, wait. I don't know that. What?
No, they probably will. That's what we will. That's what we'll do. I think for me, I've watched them all year long, and they both got cooked, and Iggy was more handsy and had more penalties, which is why for me, that's where the upside for Burke is a little bit more. He isn't as penalty prone, but they both got cooked this year.
Yeah.
Quite a few times. They got cooked in the Notre Dame game a couple of times. At the end of in the fourth quarter, they were starting to getting gassed. Our guys were getting burned a little bit. So I don't think either of them are. Igbenogson maybe will be okay in the NFL. I don't think Burke is going to see very much playing time at all.
One of the things that I always look at when I look at cornerback prospects is I look at the quarterback passer rating against when they're playing coverage, and then also their completion percentage. And I look at some of the other guys that are kind of, I should say, in that area. Like Dorian Strong, 46% reception percentage against. He had a 61 passer rating. Zy Alexander had a 53 passer rating, 43% quarterback percentage against. Denzel Burke had a 97.5 passer rating against, which I think there are some NFL Hall of Fame quarterbacks that have a lower career passer rating than that. And then he had a 73.9% reception percentage, which once again, there are NFL quarterbacks that have a lower overall reception.
He got cooked. He's burnt toast.
And it's just like
the Oregon game murdered him.
You can't do that and allow those things. And I know there are ways of manipulate. Stats are not everything. We'll talk about that time and time again. But you look at any of the top guys up there, they're going to be doing things that are a little bit different, or they're not going to be playing that outside cornerback role. So yeah, I totally see what you're talking about there.
Yeah. And that was tough. That was the weakness that Ohio State had all year long. It was the secondary. We just didn't have a strong second. I mean, we had strong safeties. We had Caleb Downs, we had Lathan Ransom. Lathan Ransom is the unsung hero. Lathan Ransom, we can transition into that because I love that guy. He does not get enough love. He was huge for Ohio State, and he did it quietly. I love me some Lathan. Caleb Downs.
Let me ask you this.
Together.
I love Caleb Downs. I think he's going to be a fun player to talk about next year.
Yeah.
Because the Lathan Ransom transition's perfect. We can talk about a couple other guys, especially next year, like Sonny Styles.
I love me some Sonny Styles too.
Lathan Ransom. So if I were to say, hey, for me, I have him as a late 4th, early 5th round pick. How much do you hate that?
I hate that a lot. I hate that a lot. I don't have him much. I mean, I have him a little higher. I think it would be fair to put him in the 3rd, mid to late 3rd, early 4th. He's got some stuff he's got to work on. He's pretty handsy. He does struggle in isolation too. He does get cooked a little bit, but he's very, very physical. He's a great run. He's got great run defense, and he's a good blitzer, and he's got really good timing. So I think he's got some of the little things, and I think that he's also another one that's consistent. He's on the field. He's doing the things that he's supposed to do all the time. Is he flashy? Is he brilliant? No, but he's very consistent, and he is going to go out and he's going to be a workhorse for you. So I think that, and he, like I said, he does it quietly. He's not that show guy. You don't hear a lot about him. You hear more about your Caleb Downs. You hear more about, your Jack Sawyers, your Tyleeks, but you don't hear a ton about him. So he does his job, and he does it well.
Yeah, I really like him. I struggle because I do think he's got the opportunity with his athleticism to be a solid cover 2 safety where he can, split a field in half. I don't think he could be a cover 1 guy.
No.
I don't think he's quite there. I think he's got good athleticism, but I don't think he's got elite athleticism. But man, you put this guy as a strong safety, let him creep up into the box a little bit and just beat the hell out of the guys. I like that. So
your guy made the Hall of Fame.
What's that?
Sterling Sharp.
As he should have. As his brother was telling everyone last year, should have been a Hall of Famer all along. Did you ever see that? Did you see that speech?
The one that Shannon Sharp said I'm not even the best player in my own.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, obviously, there's a ton of we're going way off the tracks right now.
Hello.
It was I get those you get those moments in sports where you watch and be like you get goosebumps and everything. So I'm a Cubs fan, and I got to tell this story real quick. I'm going way whatever. I'm going way off the rails.
You beat us. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, 2016 was a great year. Moving on.
No, it was not. It was a great year to be a Cavs fan.
So I remember, I'll never forget Kerry Wood, lifetime Cubs player. He threw his last pitch, and he was a closer for the Cubs. He got a standing ovation. I'm watching this game
I know
live.
Kerry Wood is, yeah.
Yeah, and so he throws his last pitch. It gets a standing ovation from the entire stadium, and you start getting that feeling. His son runs out and gives him a hug on the mound as he's coming out, and I'm like, I'm a 20-year-old college student at this point, and I start tearing up oh my God, I can't get over this. And it was one of those moments. But fast forward, Shannon Sharp's speech last year, right?
It was a few years ago.
It was a few years ago. You're right. One of the coolest speeches I've ever seen, talking about Sterling Sharp and the career he had. So well warranted. All right. Rails put back on. Lathan Ransom.
We like going off the rails. Let's
Lathan Ransom. I really like him. I want to see a little bit more. I think for me personally, I'm naturally down on guys that are more. He's not a box safety, but he doesn't offer that center fielder ability, in my opinion. And I think naturally I'm a little bit lower on those guys because I want a guy that can do that. So
that's fair.
Kind of where I come to the Lord.
There are 5 really good safeties this year.
Yeah.
We're going to see safeties go higher in this draft than we have seen. Now, that also goes to, let's say, the weakness of some other positions in the draft class. Ransom is in that next tier where he probably needs a year before he would be able to start, which is what pushes him into that 90 to 130 range on the board.
Yeah.
But he is in that tier. I've seen enough boards to know that he's somewhere between safety 6 and 8 off the board in the draft.
Yep.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. So I do have moments of I'm a homer. And Lathan Ransom is one of those guys where I'm fiercely I'm a homer with Lathan. He's one of my favorite Buckeyes. I just love the guy. So that's probably more of a with my heart and not with my head. And I fully admit it. I have homer tendencies.
I'll start posting mock drafts. I'll draft Ransom. I'll tag you in it. We can have
yes, please. I will have wherever he goes. I'll have a Ransom jersey.
I have Lathan Ransom. They're 2 different players, but I look at Malachi Moore and I look at Lathan Ransom, and I think while they play the position very, very differently, both of them have the same thing where they're not going to be a true ball hawk. Right. Malachi Moore is going to be more of that slot safety type role. Lathan Ransom is going to be more of that strong safety downhill. I'm going to make sure that nothing gets by me, and I'm truly going to be that safety blanket. And I think it kind of shows how unique that position can be, where you might be playing that position 8 different ways, and impact the game in a unique way. Because I think Lathan Ransom, if you take a look at any of the safeties in this year's class, he's going to be easily top 3 in terms of being a run defender, bar none.
He's very good at that's his he's a
exactly, and I think that speaks really well. However, that's not going to be the most important thing necessarily to me. So
I think the thing with I think that's why Lathan and Caleb were very good. They were very complementary to each other. And that was when I first started doing the podcast. So that was my goal this year, was to learn positions. it wasn't just to watch the game and yap about, oh, they missed a tackle. Like it was, I wanted to look at schemes and things like that. And one of the positions that safety is very intriguing to me now. Used to be, DBs. I do love a good DB. And the safety position was one that I really dove into. And it was really fun to watch two really good safeties, for college with Caleb and Lathan.
So I was gonna say, kind of like falling into, and once again, not a guy that's drafted this year, but Sonny Styles.
I love Sonny Styles. Yeah.
What position does Sonny Styles play? I'm just curious what you say.
Oh, they line up Sonny at safety. They line him up at I think.
I've struggled to put him is he a linebacker? Is he a safety?
No, I don't think they didn't have him. I don't think. I wouldn't say having him in a linebacker. No. I
think he's played a little bit more of the box, a lot more of the box. Let me put it that way. But I think he's truly that nickel guy that's going to be kind of hey, let's move this guy where we need him.
Right. Right.
So Josh had him as a linebacker when we did running backs and linebackers, because that was not a player Josh had watched yet. Josh had a pretty good board built when we started, but every once in a while I would give him a player. He's okay, this is a guy I haven't watched. And he said, this is immediately a top 50 player. And he said, it's a linebacker. He says his first year as a linebacker, and I'm already putting him in the top 50. And that's based upon he's got pretty good instincts, and his athletic ability is off the charts.
Well, and he's incredibly versatile. That's the thing. He's incredibly versatile. They didn't, he wasn't traditional. He's not traditional.
Yes, and the NFL likes safeties that convert to linebackers.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Because most linebackers in the NFL are lighter now. You don't see the 260-pound Ray Lewis linebacker.
No. You don't see those impenetrable brick walls. You see more athletic. You see them more athletic now.
And even if you get a guy like that, you take a Jack Campbell for Detroit Lions, you want to pair him with that athletic, I can cover that 11 personnel, that running back that's coming, shooting out of the backfield. That's going to be a huge position to need. And I think Sonny Styles is a guy that definitely does that. And obviously an exciting name to watch about next year. I think only other name though was Cody Simon, right, Jim? Or am I forgetting someone?
No, and I think Cody Simon got added later. I think the grade that typically comes back on Simon is priority free agent.
Oh,
I've got him 103 on my board. I'll just toss that one out there.
Do you really?
Hell yeah, I got him 103 on my board.
I don't see him being I see him getting drafted. I mean, later. Again, he's another one that I had that had the benefit of 4 games in the postseason. He had some strong games, and he's overshadowed by the JTT, by the Tyliek, by the Jack Sawyer. He's definitely overshadowed, but he's got some things he needs to work on. But I think that it's there. Maybe he could have a career. I don't know, but I think he gets drafted. I don't think he gets left off.
Well, and we talk about this with linebackers. So linebackers get drafted because you need 5 or 6 of them on an NFL roster because they are the players that play special teams.
Well, right.
So even if you only start 2, you've got 4 that are playing special teams, right?
Right.
So as long as the linebacker is a good enough athlete to play special teams, maybe they develop into a starter. But if you're playing special teams as a backup linebacker, you can have a really good career for a long time. One of my
there's longevity there because you're not getting beat up.
Tyler Matakevich, I don't know if that name rings a bell, but he was a safety, converted to linebacker, played in Atlanta, Buffalo, then back to Atlanta. But you don't want to see him on the field as a linebacker unless that means that your team is winning the game and kicking the other team's ass. So you're taking your starters out.
So let me, because I want to read this because I actually did it because Josh was the one that kind of tossed him on there. And I actually really liked it when I went back and took a look. And I'm curious as to what Heather thinks about my scouting report on Cody Simon. I've got him as he's a fluid mover with solid closing speed. He's a very quick processor. He can react and put himself in a really, really good position to make a play on the ball. He has an upside in coverage due to his athletic profile, and he does move really well downhill. I think the negatives that I have against him are he has limited starting experience.
He does.
And if you ask him to be a blitzer, he can't get off a block to save his life. He really, really struggles to be effective blitzing between the tackles because of a little bit going back to his frame. He's 6'2", which is smaller for a linebacker.
And that's what I have. He's small, and he doesn't have the span. Like he's just small framed.
Right. He's 6'2", 235. It's a smaller linebacker. Yeah. I don't think anyone's gonna. 5 years ago, you say that, and you're like, nah, that guy's not playing. Now you say that, and you're like, okay, like that.
He's smaller. You're not saying, he's
smaller.
He's
not obsolete.
Yeah.
But I think I don't want this guy. I do not want this guy playing in a scheme where I'm blitzing him a ton. I want this guy almost as like that dime back he could play. I could definitely see him as a will linebacker if you're asking him to play a lot of coverage on a 11 personnel where you've got a pass catching back. I think that all of those provide opportunity. I like Cody Simon. I think his athletic ability is really intriguing.
It is. He actually is an intriguing prospect. But where you said there, so those quick, like a screen or the running back dump, Cody Simon, prolonged blocks or the prolonged like holding against the offensive line, like he's not going to be the guy that's going to get off of his blocks.
Yeah.
He's going to hold those blocks a little too long. So you have to have those quick plays for him. That's where he excels.
No, I totally agree with that.
Well, why don't we pause here for a minute? And Heather, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, how they can find your content? And
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of places that you can go to follow me, but it is all on my Twitter, X page, whatever you want to call it. So I should have introduced myself earlier. I'm Heather. I'm a rabid Ohio State fan, and you can find me on X at Love Buckeyes. I do a couple of podcasts now. I have my network of really awesome women at Bougie Sports. Follow us at bougiesports.net. And then just recently, we just did our debut today. Ethan Greenberg and I did our first, the Best Doggone podcast. So we did that where we talk about kind of all things. So check me out, give me a follow, and you'll see all of my nonsense because there's a lot of nonsense that I post.
New.
So, yeah. Thank you so much though for this. I love talking sports. I love talking, anything. I'm NFL, NBA, NCAA. I saw the Buckeyes just won tonight in basketball, which we don't see that a lot for Ohio State. So I'm definitely a rabid fan.
I remember the years though, like Ohio State when I was in high school, college, those were you'd play badgers would play Ohio State. And it's like, man, this is gonna be
it was big.
One of those games. It's huge. I still remember those. Those were a ton of fun.
Well, that was when the Big Ten was dominant in
it's coming back. It's
coming back a little bit. Yeah, Purdue last year helped, but
Big Ten's got a fair amount of ranked teams right now, so it's exciting to watch right now.
They do. So you can check me out. I like a little bit of everything. I love my Cleveland teams, but I'm definitely branching out into more sports related. So we talk about more than just Ohio State, more than just Cleveland on my pods. We talk about all of it and where it fits in.
And we talk about the draft in so many different directions. I didn't know how this whole thing was going to come together, but this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Newt, want to tell everybody who you are, how they can find you.
Hey, I'm Newt Weston. You guys, if you're tuning in regularly, you've probably heard this a million times, but mostly on Twitter at NFL Draft _Weston. I run ZeroTechDraft.com. That's starting to really fire up as the Super Bowl is right around the corner, which means even better, draft season is right around the corner, which, let's be honest, that's what we really care about. So that's when everything that I start doing really starts to fire up. Twitter is where you're going to find a lot of the stuff that I do, but big boards, mock drafts, player rankings, all that you can find on my website. And every Thursday night here, 8 Eastern, I've been having a blast. Unfortunately, Owen isn't here, but it's been a ton of fun to be doing this. every week, Thursday, with Owen and Jim especially, and all the way up to the draft. It'll be a blast. Check it out. Subscribe. NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I in Fanatic.
No, I am Fanatic.
Remind you. And check us out on Twitter, please, as well. Subscribe. Make sure you're following Jim. Make sure you're following Heather if you're a Browns fan and looking for God only knows what to do with Myles Garrett.
I rant about them a lot.
And it's like you got both ends of the spectrum. It's like, oh man, Ohio State Buckeyes just won a national championship. Oh man, the Browns, second worst team in football, are looking to get even worse.
Back to earth. Yep.
There's a lot that you guys.
There's only one spot the Browns can go lower.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just saying, like
no. We can find new ways to go lower. Trust me. Just when you think we're at the bottom, we can take it. We can take it lower. That's why I always joke. That's why Ohio State losses bother me so badly, because I expect the Browns to lose. When they lose, they lose. Like, it is what it is. When Ohio State loses, I'm like, I rely on you for my mental health here. What are you doing?
I get that.
Absolutely.
I get that. So I don't have a lot of sports teams. I have the Bills. And I'll watch other sports, but I don't necessarily cheer for teams, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you can follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. It's the same on YouTube and X. If you go to the YouTube, there is detailed breakdowns on 225 players in the NFL draft. You can catch Newt and Owen breaking down the interior defensive linemen and the interior offensive linemen. You can catch Bill Sparks doing the corners and wide receivers. Bill, thank you for being in the chat. We had a couple of other regulars in the chat. Brandon, you're here every night. Thank you. And I think I saw Sloops. I know that it's not your first podcast, but thank you for stopping by, Sloops. So we have a 32 GM mock draft every Friday night. We will have Newt on the microphone talking about every single pick that comes in. And then we will have 30 other people picking for their NFL teams. So if you want to participate in a 32 GM mock, check out the pinned tweet or just reach out to me. Find me, reach out to me. I'm not usually difficult to find. So this channel has daily draft content. This was our second podcast today on the channel. Monday through Thursday, 2 podcasts a day, 32 GM mock draft on Friday, another podcast on Saturday morning. We have the draft covered. Yep. I've got 32 guys just like Newt. Like, you guys are amazing. So
Newt, you're amazing. Anybody that's watching live on my feed, give these two guys a follow. This has been so much fun. And Newt, you've got a new fan in me. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
We got to come up with something to do for summer scouting. Like, over the summer, we're going to be, building our boards. So even getting like the inside scoop on who transferred to Ohio State, like through the portal.
I got you. I'll be at the spring game. Every year I'm at the spring game, and I'm the nerd that's actually watching. I'll be there.
Cool.
Love it.
Well,
Love it.
Let's wrap this thing up. On behalf of Heather, Newt, myself, the 32 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mrs. R Relevant, the Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. Please follow the Draft Professor on X at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. Please follow the Draft Professor channel on YouTube at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. We look forward to seeing you on our podcast tomorrow.